Okay, so we're starting the very first body electronics group study. And so this is our group for today. And it's always in body electronics, it's always quantity, not quality. So it's great. Thanks for showing up, Helen and Guy. Um, so this inspiration came around getting people interested again in body electronics and to do my part um, as far as I know, there's only myself and Peter Hind in the UK that are still sort of. I haven't been very active, but um, Peter has been. He's been doing a body electronics intensive once a year. I think he's going to do one again this August. If people out there are interested, just find Peter Hind Body Electronics, and he'll show up online. Um, I'm sure he's still taking participate participants in this year's intensive. So for me, I haven't done an intensive since 2018, and mostly because of lack of participants. I think it was maybe, what was it, Guy? Maybe 3 or 4 years ago, since I moved in the interior of British Columbia, that I found this great place that would just be super for an intensive. It's very private and has a kitchen and has lots of bathrooms and all the things we need when we're doing a body electronics intensive. And I was working with people. There was probably about, I think there was about 15 active people that were committed to it. And I said earlier when we chatted before recording that body electronics often starts off really, people are very enthusiastic, but then when the hard work comes, people start to wane. And that's what happened. Like it started about 6 weeks prior to the intensive, and every like few days somebody was dropping out. And then I had to cancel it. I mean, there wasn't enough to, there was, I mostly for people who were traveling, like you were coming from New Zealand, Guy. I don't want people to come, long distance, and then there's like two, three people or, four people holding points. It doesn't really make much sense. So that was my last attempt at an intensive, and I will do it again with enough participation. I still live very near where this great venue is, so with enough participation, we will get back into the actual point holding, which is the necessary part of body electronics. It's that giving and receiving. And that was one of the first things that drew me to body electronics, was the fact that it wasn't like practitioner patient based. It was everybody's equal. It has to be overseen by an instructor, but um, everybody participating in the intensive is equal in the amount of giving and receiving, which is extremely important. It puts everybody on the same level. And to do that, there's a lot of preparations, both physically and psychologically. So, so we'll start today in just kind of a beginning, just an entrance point into the knowledge that's required to go forward into actually practicing, actually being in an intensive and doing the work. So I looked at, I dug out John's Logic and Sequence, 999 pages. This is the first one. Of course, it's backwards on the thing, but um, and I went through the first two chapters, and that gives us enough to really, get a little discussion going. And if either one of you have anything to add or questions, just pop in at any time, and we'll do it like that. We'll keep it really free flowing. Um, so the first thing, like in John's books, oh, okay, well, I'll say this too, what we talked about before record, um, on my website, wholehealthcenter.com, I have a upload of all of John's books. So the three Logic and Sequence books, and that's John Whitman Ray. I should talk like people have never heard of body electronics before, who developed body electronics. You know, it was a development. It took many, many, many years of trial and error on his part, and a lot of, you know, internal inspiration. And eventually it became this body of work called body electronics. And so these books are on my website. You can download them, and I highly recommend to have them printed off. Spiral bindings work really well, especially during an intensive where you want to, you know, when we're studying or doing something, you want to look something up. And yeah, so go ahead and do that. If you're interested at all, it's free of charge. And like Guy pointed out before the recording, if you want them in hard copy, there's only 1,500 copies made in the world. So if you want them in hard copy, occasionally they will come up online. If somebody passes away, they have come up online, but they're $600 or $700 each. So do it now free of charge off the site. And I really felt strongly. We got together in Pennsylvania. Guy, you probably heard me talk about this before, but um, when Jim Graham was still alive, and there was a lot of us body electronics veterans, and we got together when we were with Doug and discussed what to do about the logic and sequence books, because we didn't want to go against any copyright or wills. I mean, this was after John passed away, and we didn't come to a conclusion on it because John left without a will, so nobody was ever going to, you know, none of his descendants were ever going to be able to make anything financially off of them. So that would just make the books just be in limbo. So that's what inspired me to. I know John would want them to be out there, and I know he'd want them to be out there free of charge. So that's why they've been on my site for at least 12 years. So anyway, so that's the story about the books. And we're going to just start with the what I think is the very first and most necessary thing to remember, like especially during point holding. You can attest to this too, Guy, I'm sure. Um, the very first and number one principle that we have to, keep recalling is lovingly and willingly endure all things. That's and as much as I even resisted those words in the beginning, because I was thinking, all things, how on earth could we lovingly and willingly endure all things on this earth? You know, that was, and I struggled with that for a long time until I got higher up into the levels of emotion, and then I understood it more fully. So I'll just read the little highlight in John's books. He has all of the really, really important stuff and the principles highlighted, and he also wrote it in. I got the blur going on here, but he also wrote it. He had it printed in large print, and so you see there that the principles are highlighted. So it's even though it's a lot to grasp, and these books are to be mulled over and read very, very intently, very slowly, and also in sequence, as the name implies. You know, you can't jump into book three, for example. Like it was, even when I got to book three, I thought, I was like, what language is this? I have no idea what this is saying to me. I mean, it was just so foreign to me. So it takes a lot of yeah, it just takes a lot of I'm not going to say time, because we all do it at our own pace. And the first time I read the books, I ate it up like, I was just like, I was up at night. My children were very young at that time, like very, very young. And I was just, in the middle of the night, I was just reading, 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 and then I'd go back and read some more, keep going back, and but anyway, it's let's just say they're books that out of I used to own a bookstore, and out of the thousands and thousands of books that I've read in my life on spirituality and holistic self-healing and all the um, different components of philosophy and Jung and all of those things. These three books are actually the most profound that I have ever found, and I think everybody who reads them can attest to that. So John says, you will learn that one of the prerequisites for successful results in body electronics is to lovingly and willingly endure all things. So that's the number one principle there. So do you want to add anything to that, Guy?
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where I remember you and everybody who teaches BE teaches feel what you feel with love. So when you're having your points held and you're on the table lying still, breathing slow and deep, you're gonna start going through various layers of emotion. And Doug Morrison gives that example of metaphysical archaeology, where it's like you're digging the memory up and there's layers to the memory. So you'll go through the usual order is the unconsciousness, apathy, grief, and so on and so on. But just feeling those things with love is I think it's easy to confuse. I've definitely brought into um, sort of suppressing or avoiding my emotions just in my normal life, and then thinking that's love, and sort of
Uh-huh.
convincing myself that I'm at peace with it. And then you get on the table and go back to that experience that you thought you loved, and hang on, I didn't love it, and go through the emotions on
The
the
deeper
table
the
there.
deeper levels, the deeper levels in
Yeah.
the when the unconscious starts to
Mm.
rise and we get to actually see and feel it. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, good point. And I said earlier, I had resistance to that principle and struggled with it for quite a few years. It was like lovingly and willingly endure all things. How is that even possible? So, um, one of the things that I discovered that we do it piecemeal. So it's not like um, we have to, uh, love everything all the time. It's actually impossible to do that. And as human beings, it's very impossible. So to be able to um, really feel and be honest with ourselves about what we're actually feeling, and begin with loving that. So if we hate something, or if we are angry about something, or if we're griefy about something, or we can love that feeling. So it's not this blanket thing where we have to, we have to love everything, and if we don't love everything, we're not we're not spiritual, or we're not doing the work properly, because it's much more nuanced than that. And it's really about getting to the honesty and the actual feelings that are there, and preferably doing it either on the body electronics table, or in private space in your own personal life. And we can do that as a meditation. And I haven't had any point holding for decades. Like it has been a very long time. I hold points on myself when necessary, but I haven't had anybody around me holding points. So it's about becoming disciplined enough in our own lives, especially when we don't have this, the point holders around us, or the intensives happening. Then we can start to learn how to be independent with our, just be independent, and and allow the truth to come up within us. But is always better done privately. That's my point. Otherwise, the universe will service up the experiences in our lives that will bring up those emotions or trigger us or help us, give us opportunities to find those things within us. So I always just, I always thought in my own life that it's way better to do that either privately or on the body electronics table. And then it doesn't become this manifested reality, you know?
Mm.
Yeah. Because that's what happens, right? Like we're walking around with this unconscious resistance within us. And that unconscious resistance is actually creating in our lives.
Mm.
And so we will experience that one way or the other. But like I said, better to do it as a discipline. And I hope that these videos too, like I plan on continuing these videos, whether anybody wants to participate or not is fine, but I really plan on getting through all of John's 3 books and putting that on, on video on the YouTube channel, and then people can access it as they choose. And, hopefully encourage people to really make a discipline out of
Mm.
releasing resistance in their daily lives. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That reminds me, Ilya, did you receive Graham Bennett's recent email? I think he did it
No.
to, a whole bunch of subscribers. I'll forward it on to you because
Oh,
he
great.
said in that he'd written I think you call it a companion for some of the logic and sequence. I don't know how
Oh,
much he's
wow.
done or anything, but
Yeah.
like a sort of a guide to interpreting it and explaining it kind of well.
Oh, oh,
So
great.
it's
Great.
kind of cool timing actually.
Yeah. That's recent.
Usually,
No, I didn't
yeah,
receive anything, but I have like maybe I haven't had any contact with Graham for a long time. So maybe he has an old email address. So yeah, that'd be great if you would send that on to me. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Great. Um, okay, so the next, okay, so I'll read the next highlighted bit. It is very important to be able to discern accurately when you are causing trauma by pushing, because we do, for anybody who's watching this who doesn't know what we do something called point holding, which is sustained acupressure. And I mean sustained, like hours. So by pushing too hard, or when by simply applying non-traumatic pressure, the pain that is locked into the crystal is being released as the crystal dissolves. Either way, the pain is experienced, which requires keen discernment. Never apply more pressure to a body electronics point than an individual can lovingly and willingly endure. This is very important. So that's more practical stuff. So um, and I'll just add here too. So it's like the pain will be released, but we might feel physical pain, but it might be more emotional things that are being released. Sometimes it takes a little while to get pain to be released, and it takes in my experience, it's taken quite a long time and a lot of effort to actually get to the emotional pain, because emotional pain is very high on the scale of emotions.
Mm.
So we have to go through unconsciousness, apathy, grief, fear, anger, and then we get to pain. And then above that is
Mm.
enthusiasm. So I'll pop in enthusiasm right here for people that are new. Enthusiasm in body electronics comes from the word enthuse, which we speak about it in a way that um, it is the God within, or the divine within, the great transmuter within. So it's beyond the human capacity, basically. It's not the enthusiasm. Like I hear people talking about enthusiasm in body electronics, where it's like, oh, I was really enthusiastic. That's not what we're talking about in enthusiasm. It's not about that that way that we think of enthusiasm, where we're excited about something, or or other ways we might view enthusiasm. That's not it. The enthusiasm is when we can actually get internal enough and clear enough so that we can find the love within. So we can actually say love within. We don't even have to use the word enthusiasm. But I always want to clarify that early on, because it can be confusing. Yeah. So really it's about when we find something. So in body electronics point holding, the person on the table is looking for three things. We're looking for the memory to surface, we're looking for the emotion to surface, and we're looking for word patterns to come forth. So those three things are the key things that we have to access. And that's what the point holding does. The point holding helps us to access those things internally. And then we can work with them. We can work to transmute them and release them. That's the whole point of body electronics in a nutshell. And so when we find those things, whether we find them one at a time or two at a time or getting all three, then we can find what we can love about it. So we can, perhaps there's a piece of the memory that we can love. It may be just something very, very simple within the memory. And we start there. And then that love expands, and we get to have more and more and more access to that love, that transmuting force. And of course, forgiveness and gratitude are the other two transmuting forces that we access within. So I know that's kind of a jumbled up bit, but there are little bits and pieces that eventually will, with enough study and with enough contemplation and experience, when one gets on the table and starts holding points. When we start holding points, it's, we learn so much, eh, Guy?
Oh yeah, yeah. Get some really beautiful experiences holding points. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mm.
painful ones, and um,
Mm.
it's a challenging. Like I was thinking about cranials in the last week, and I received 6 cranials over the years, and I gave 7 because we had an odd number, and Doug said, "Hey, would you mind jumping in to give that extra cranial?" And giving cranials is more difficult than receiving it. It's a very very intense process. There was one man that I gave a cranial to, that I literally thought that when I took my finger out of his, cranials are done, the first part of the cranials are done inside the palate, inside the mouth, and you go up in behind the eyeball of the sphenoid bone. And that's the advanced. I mean, it takes years. People might not even get to the point at this point to even get to cranials again. I don't know. But if there was years worth of body electronics under your belt, and I do believe it does take years to get to the place where cranials can actually be successful. So that's just to give you an idea of how experienced one must be before attempting any cranial electronics. But I was giving this man a cranial, and I was not sure that my finger had literally not been melted down, and that when I pulled out, that I would not have a finger any longer. And that was like absolute. Like I actually thought like there was a great chance that my finger was gone, because it was in molten lava for hours. And it was a very and they're all intense to some degree. The cranials are all very, very intense, um but that
Mm.
one in particular came to mind.
Wow.
Yeah.
That doesn't it doesn't surprise me you say giving them is more difficult than receiving. It kind of, I don't know, in a sense, it sort of makes sense. But I do remember looking up at Graham wincing while he had his finger in my mouth.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. No, you
yeah.
have to really be able to transmute your pain to be able to give a cranial or receive a
Mm,
cranial too, of course. But
mm,
it's you really got to be able to like transmute like this, like just
mm,
really be able to lovingly and willingly endure, lovingly and willingly endure, and and be able to have that energy like truthfully. Like we can tell ourselves we're lovingly and willingly enduring. Our mind is really good at at telling ourselves
mm,
that, but actually doing it is a whole other thing. Actually, really, where you're experiencing extreme pain or extreme, something very, very extreme, and not resisting it. That's what lovingly and willingly enduring all things means. It means that you're not resisting the experience. So it's not that you're not feeling it, you're feeling it fully. You're feeling the burning, you're feeling the pain, you're feeling the anguish, you're feeling all of those things fully, but you're not resisting it. That's the kicker. And that takes, it takes a lot of effort. That takes a long time. Yeah. To
mm,
really get to the point, we have to really go through at some level, we have to go through all of those levels of emotion and get to that enthusiasm, that love within. We have to get to that place to really be able to start truly transmuting. And that takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of willingness, because, that's where the willingness comes in, the lovingly and willingly, because the
mm,
willingness that it requires to really to be able to do it and even participate in it, even starting off as a new point holder, to be able to be able to be willing to be of service to the degree that our comfort isn't the priority. So we can really truly experience a lot of discomfort, a lot of pain, a lot of burning, a lot of electricity, a lot of numbness, a lot of discomfort, uh, and be perfectly willing to do that, for the other. And
mm,
that's like, to me, I think that was that sort of, not sort of, but really feeling that to be of service, to be willing to be of service so that someone else can heal their resistance and heal holistically. When we heal our resistance, we're healing holistically. It's not about, people come to body electronics for all different reasons. Some come, because they understand that there's morphogenetic resonance that goes down into their children and grandchildren. And I saw many people um, come into body electronics with that inspiration. And or sometimes they came in because, they themselves were physically um, needing healing, whether it be emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever. Um, yeah, there's many, many different reasons why people come and go from body electronics. But if we can keep um, the true um, service, the true service to others, if we can really bring that to the table, I think that really goes a long way, not only for the person on the table, but for the person holding the points. The person sort of, being the point holder, or being, giving the service. I've had many, many things happen in over the years where, um, suddenly, I mean, I was of service and I was just totally just, focused on holding the point as successfully as I could. And I received great blessing. I mean, it never occurred to me, and I suppose if you're doing it hoping that you'll receive great blessing, they won't come. But uh, one comes to mind where there was this woman um, who had had a botched appendicitis surgery, and with a really nasty scar. She had actually sued the surgeon because he had come in with alcohol on his breath, and it was just a terrible scar. And during this very, very, very intense point holding, I was holding her pineal on the toe, on her toe. So, I mean, this is back in the early 2000s. And, usually you hold the pineal, it's a pretty easy point to hold. It's pretty early point to hold for a person. Well, this woman really got into um, that trauma. And it was like she really worked. She was just, giving it all she had. And I think it was like it's probably like about a 2.5 hour session, something like that. And um, after the session, she went into the bathroom and we heard her scream. And when she came out, she had her pants down, and her appendicitis scar, the surgery had completely dissolved. And it was non-existent. You couldn't see anything. Like Doug was in there, I was in there. We were looking, and the scar had completely, completely gone. And we were also happy for her. We were so elated that she got to that depth where we can actually move through these constructs of physics that we have thought exist here on planet Earth, and move past those constructs and actually see things that aren't supposed to happen. And of course, you're in body electronics long enough, you see that a lot of that. And then so that evening, after the class, I go back, and I go back to the motel, and I have a shower, and I look down. I had 4 cesarean sections and one really, really, really nasty scar. And they did the cesarean sections over top of the scar that I'd had I had a surgery when I was 10 years old to fix a ureter from the kidney to the bladder that had been twisted. So, and I had keloid tissue, and it was like this wide across um, in a vertical scar, and big bump, big keloid tissue. So the surgeons, when I had my children, all emergency sections and so forth, they decided to just go over that one scar. So you can imagine those 5 scars and how much keloid tissue and everything like that. Well, when I was washing myself in that shower and I looked down, still to this day, it never came back. My scar had become as thin as a fingernail. And it was still, you could still see the scar, and it was the same length and everything, but all the keloid tissue was gone, and it was just as thin as could be. And I went back the next day and showed Doug, and I mean, that's just one example of how this works. How things so I again, my point is to be truly of service, so that lovingly and willingly endure all things is as much for the person holding the points as being on the table and having their points held. So I guess that's the point of all of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Yeah. Anything you want to say, Helen?
How many people are in a normal point holding session?
Many as possible. When John was teaching, he went out. I had great aspirations over the years, and he went. He had a what would you call it, guy? Like a group of people that lived together on Maui, and once I think maybe
Like
several times a year, maybe they would rent they were always point holding, I believe, and Doug lived there for years, and but they would go to the YMCA, Maui YMCA, up Hana Highway. And so at one point years ago, many years ago, I thought, oh, I'm going to, walk in John's footsteps, and I'm going to go and see if I can rent that facility and get enough people interested and have an intensive up there. It was enormous. I think it housed 150 with beds
Wow.
and a massive area with tents. People could come and tent. And it was right on the ocean, and the waves were splashing up on the black lava, and
Wow.
it was just magnificent. And I had all these visions of how, days gone past, when John was teaching there, and he would have upwards of 250 people. Yeah, I heard
Okay.
stories of 250 people. He had a huge volunteer team of women, and probably some men, but mostly women, I think, who just managed everything. And of course, Anita, when he married Anita, Anita was, busy doing a lot of the management too. But I don't know. I don't know how small John's groups were. I mean, I know they were maybe small in the beginning, but he was very charismatic, and he always attracted a lot of people. When I started working with Doug and started attending his intensives, they were somewhere in the neighborhood of 50, and that was a great size. Like having that many, I mean, I just thought that was a fantastic size. And then over the years, it went to 40, then it went to 30, then it went to 20. And then I think the last 2 or 3 intensives that Doug gave, there were 7. And by that time, I was teaching with him. And yeah, we couldn't explain it. It was like, was it like computers and technology? Was it like, what was it that from like the early 2000s to 2007 when Doug retired, what was it during those years that, and not only with body electronics, but with many things, with many different healing modalities that people used to have like huge amounts, just became like just dwindled down to nothing. And so that, and that's when, Doug just couldn't support his family. I mean, it was his job. I mean, he dedicated his life to that for many, many years. So he went
Mm.
on and retired and did something else. So with me, I think my largest group was 22, and that took a lot of effort. Oh my gosh. To get, to work with people and get them nutritionally prepared and to get them educated, it was like it would take me months and months and months in advance to get that many people that actually showed up. Like I said earlier, like there might have been like 30 or 40 people interested in the beginning, but then the people that actually showed up was um uh yeah, the largest one was 22. So, and I
Wow.
typically got maybe between 12 and 20 was kind of like the size that typically came. And then that dwindled down, like I said earlier. And like my criteria is like I'm not even going to think about it unless there's at least 20 people interested, because that 20 people will dwindle down. And as things get tougher and as things start to come to the surface, it's a very difficult and challenging process. And it's anybody who's ever done it for any length of time at all will tell you that. And I always really speak about that up front, because I don't want people coming into body electronics unless they're fully prepared for what's to come.
Mm.
And, people are, we all have to take responsibility for that and prepare ourselves. But I have to do, as an instructor, I have to do as much as I possibly can to get people at that level where they're really ready to address the intensity. Yeah. So,
Mm.
okay, let me look at my notes here. Okay, so here's one of the things that I wrote down from the first chapter 1 in Logic and Sequence. Until man experiences on the mental level that which exists on the physical level, she will be bound to the physical. So that is
Can you say that again?
Until man experiences on the mental level that which exists on the physical level, he will be bound to the physical.
Okay.
And that takes a long time to really understand what that truly means. It actually takes getting to the mental level to truly understand. So we can, but that was one of his first things in chapter 1. So he's setting the stage for the future in that statement, because so what I said earlier about we're dragging around with us on the physical level and the emotional and mental level, we're dragging that with us unconsciously. So what he's really saying there is when we consciously experience it on the mental level, that's when we're able to transmute it, fully transmute it, and then it will cease to exist on the physical level and the emotional level, physical and emotional. So, and by cease to exist, I mean the resistance. The resistance that we're working with will cease to exist on the physical and emotional level. That's why there's so many spontaneous healings. When people actually get to the mental level, and they can transmute at the mental level. People have gotten to the mental level. I've seen it a few times over the years where people can actually get into the mental level and really start transmuting. But sometimes it's very fleeting. Like they'll get to the mental level because the pain pops you into the mental level, like physical pain or emotional pain will pop you into the mental level. And then it becomes even more intensified. Like Doug used to say, the pain in the physical level is 10 times in the emotional level, like it's 10 times more painful. And then again, in the mental level, like who knows how many times, but I mean, these are just numbers that give you an idea that it gets more and more and more and more extreme. So when you jump from the emotional level of pain into the mental level, it's extreme. You have to really be focused and you have to really be lovingly and willingly enduring at that point. You actually wouldn't get there unless you were. You can't even get into the mental level unless you can actually lovingly and willingly endure. And the same goes for the emotional body. You can't get from fear to anger or from anger to pain unless you can lovingly and willingly endure, because that's the first entrance way into the transmutation process. And then you can, if you're lovingly and willingly enduring it, really experiencing it, in other words, really experiencing the whatever's there, the memory, the emotion, and the word pattern. So truly putting effort into like just really, bringing that to the surface of your own internal process. This isn't an external process. This is an internal process. So, I mean, we can externalize emotion by crying and screaming and, doing all of that, which we do. And that's part of the process, especially in the beginning. And I always think that repeating the word patterns out loud, especially in the beginning, and by beginning it means maybe the first 2 or 3 years of point holding, to express the words externally, I think is extremely important. John does say, and rereading some of John's book 1, John does say, like the internal word. I'm sorry, he says the external, the spoken word. So he says the spoken word. So to be able to say the word patterns, externally is extremely important. But then eventually it also becomes the internal. We have to pay attention to the internal word patterns as well. They're a little more subtle. As point holding evolves, as the emotional body gets from one place to the other, we call it going up the scale of emotion. And as we evolve through that, through our efforts, then I remember going sort of from that externalized word patterns, where I'd be like really vocalizing them, and then eventually it got more internal, more internal, more internal. And that's what happens as we go through the emotional body and into the mental body. Things just become more and more and more internal. Yeah, we get more aware of the internal, and that becomes more of an internal process. Yeah, like in the V&C, Visualization and Consciousness course, last one was in 2005. When and only instructors of body electronics can attend that, and maybe there'll never be another one again. I don't know. What do you think, Guy?
Yeah, I don't know. I did ask Graham maybe 10 years ago, what do you think about doing another instructor seminar? Because I think he mentioned he was doing something with some people, in a town about a couple of hours drive from Auckland where he lived. And he said, oh, you'd be the only person there. So
Exactly. Here's
yeah.
somebody just popped in, so I'm just going to.
Hey, you Mike.
Do I have to do anything? I guess he just comes in. I think I did the thing where somebody can just come in automatically.
Hi, hello.
Hi, Mike. Come on in.
Hi.
Welcome.
So so the Visualization and Consciousness course is where we're working with galvanometers. Is that how you say it?
I think so, yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
And you do everything internal. There's no point holding. You're in the mental body. You're even going beyond the mental body at that point. So that just gives you an idea of how things evolve when when you're working away. So okay, so let's go on to the next. So I'm going to say that again, Helen, because I remember this. I literally said this to my.
Guy Armstrong is really.
I'm going to mute these guys. Hang on one sec. Maybe they muted themselves. So
You are really handsome.
What's happening?
oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to mute.
Maybe I'm trying to take this serious, but something.
Okay, I don't know who these people are. So I think I muted them. Anyway, we'll find out, I guess. Yeah, I think these guys need to go.
No, I'm just trying to take this class, but someone's like making sounds or something. I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to remove them. Oh, I've been hacked. Right? Like, how are these guys getting in? I'm going to remove them anyway.
Are they on the page at all?
No, I've never heard of these people. There was three of them. I'm just going to take them all out. Okay. So let's get back. So until man experiences on the mental level that which exists on the physical level, he will be bound to the physical. So that there's so much in that. And I might have given a couple of little hints to it, but do you want to add anything to that, Guy?
The thing that springs to mind is like you talked beautifully about what can sort of happen in our bodies and how it can be held there for years and years and years and then eventually released when we transmute. But the other one that you've spoken heaps on in the past is also the patterns that recur in our lives over and over again. So,
Yeah.
and I don't want to open up Pandora's box there, but you know, but that would be another sort of way in which having something held at the mental level and then it goes down to the emotional and then out into the physical, like
Right.
spots of common sort of word patterns. And reminds me, in one of those early tapes, John gives the example of Jesus Christ saying, "As a person thinketh in their heart, so are they." You know, it's gendered or whatever, but he says it's as a man thinketh at a mental level in his heart, at an emotional level, so is he at the physical.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, kind of another way of looking at it. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And it's like, but we always have to remember that in body electronics, we start from the bottom up. So it's a bottom up approach. So we're starting on the physical level, and that's where the the supplementation is absolutely necessary. The minerals, there's the 5 things. So there's we'll start with the enzymes, because the enzymes are actually number 1. You can find all this information on my website too, but I just want to mention it here so the people know that we start on the physical level and then we build from there. So enzymes, and on my site, I write a little bit more than just like we used to do, like just like a broad spectrum enzyme, and then maybe we'd add a little extra protease to it for the mucoprotein to get rid of any mucoprotein in the lymphatic system and so forth. But enzymes in the last 20 years, 25 years, enzymes have really come a long way. So there's really great enzyme. We got a really great enzyme company here in Canada, and so I've added serrapeptase, and for some people nattokinase, and other enzymes, but always that extra protease. That's really important to the it's not just like a basic overall enzyme with lipase, amylase, and protease anymore. I mean, the enzymes have really, really improved over the years. So, so enzymes number 1, because everything else sort of relies on that enzyme structure, and we have to clean up our gastrointestinal in order to get anything to work right. If we want our hormones, like the endocrine system is the emotional body. So if we want to get our endocrine system and our hormones functioning properly, we have to start on the physical level. So then we go to minerals, and that is the trace minerals. Enzymes International is the best source of that out of Wisconsin. And liquid is, caps are fine for daily use, but for an intensive, liquid is always the preferred way. It just has a different effect. It's expensive to ship. My Canadian dollar is like, I don't know, I think we're at a ridiculous difference with the American dollar. So it costs a lot of money to get it up, to Canada. It costs a lot of money to get it to New Zealand, but that has to be done. The third thing is probiotics. Probiotics have also come a long way. I've found some really great probiotics lately that I've been using, and I've been putting on adding L-reuteri, which is really, really an essential probiotic that I found made a lot of difference with me and other people. essential fatty acids, which is number 4. Cod liver oil I take twice a day. There's lots to be said about essential fatty acids, but all that information is on my site. I'm just saying this basic stuff for anybody who's just looking. And raw protein. So raw protein is necessary for all our amino acid profile. And bee pollen is a really great source. Sprouts are a great source, hemp hearts. There's lots of really great sources, but bee pollen I think is the number 1 source of raw protein. Good,
Wow.
really good quality and preferably local. Anything with a bee, all the beautiful things that bees give us, local is always preferred. Yeah, so those are the 5 things that are absolutely necessary. I'm on a much more extensive nutritional program than that, but that's where to start. And back in the day, way back in the day, there used to be a lot of like fresh and raw. And now I have I did a lot of fresh and raw. I've been vegan, I've been vegetarian, I've been, I've been in this game for a long time. I've done it all. And for the last 6 years, I've been wheat-free, grain-free, 99.9% completely grain-free. And as of late, I have been, and also keto, but healthy keto, which is very specific. And but lately I have been leaning just a lot toward the carnivore diet. And for a brief period of time, I don't believe the carnivore diet. I've done a lot of study on it, and now I've been probably a good year and a half into, I would say, 85 to 90% carnivore. And I believe it should be perhaps like temporary. It's like when anybody who has been eating like real heavy things, like lots of dairy and lots of stuff for, let's say, 30 years, 40 years, and they go on a vegetarian diet, they're going to feel great for the first year. And then your body's going to need certain things that it can't get, especially in a vegan diet. A vegan diet is really lacking in essential fatty acids, for instance. And so you can do it for a little while, and that maybe help your body detox a little bit, and you might feel better for a little while. But then we have to be really cognizant of nutrients. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, and I'm feeling, pretty decent. I'm yeah. Not going to tell you my age, but I think it's just been really good for me. The many years of the keto diet and then going more into the carnivore, it's been very helpful. I always kind of held on to like 20 or 30 extra pounds, and it was so difficult. And I could not get rid of that while still eating wheat or sugar. I should say I've been sugar-free for many years. So wheat and sugar and I believe that wheat and sugar are kind of like the nemesis of most people's diets. And if we can just get rid of those 2 things and then add like starches onto that, like potatoes and, other grains, we can really do a lot in boosting our ability to even absorb the nutrients, which, I've seen people, they're taking all kinds of nutrients and they don't seem to be getting anywhere with them. And that's usually because the body's not able to assimilate. So it's, yeah. So anyway, just my point is that nutrition is very, very important, and it's really the basis of getting the body ready to do the work. And we need to have a really good hormonal balance to get things moving. So let's see. What else did I write down? Yeah, the big challenge is getting through the emotional body. Like with that statement about, the mental body, and so the challenge is getting through the emotional body. I've seen people work on the table and work pretty diligently too on the table for many years, and still be kind of going through the emotional body. And really it's the willingness to get to your own pain, lovingly and willingly endure it, and start really transmuting that pain. And we do that at every level. So we have unconscious pain, we have apathetic pain, we have griefy pain, fearful pain, angry pain, and painful pain. And when we get to the painful pain, things are really starting to cook, because we've made it through that first scale. Yeah, there's 7 of those, by the way. They're nested within each other. So, but we have to get to pain. That's really where things start popping into the mental body. Yeah. You want to say anything there, Guy?
No, I think that's very well said.
So the next thing that I took from, this is chapter 2 now in Logic and Sequence. So the first thing I took from it was John wrote about suppressing, balancing, and creating. So a few years ago, I probably would have said that there's no time where we should be balancing. I'm sure I would have said that maybe 10 or 20 years ago. That movement, to keep moving forward and staying sort of at sort of a low level healing crisis, but keeping that going and not bringing it down into a relative level of balance. I've actually changed my mind about that, because in the last few years, I've had to bring myself into some homeostasis. And that homeostasis for a period of time actually allowed me to get to a place where then I could go further. So that's why experience is always full of wisdom. And so not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's, we don't want to be in the position where we have to balance ourselves and bring ourselves into homeostasis. That's not the ultimate thing we want to do, but sometimes we find ourselves in need of doing that. So I just wanted to add that. That's not in John's book. I just wanted to kind of add that. And I think, he wrote these books in the late 80s and the early 90s. And honestly, people's health has changed since 2020 in so many different ways. I have seen such a dramatic shift in every, like, I would say everyone on the whole planet has changed since 2020, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So with that change, we have to kind of, adjust and change with it. But what we want to do, so he talks about suppression. So, you can read about that, but of course, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for what is suppressed within us that we can release. And we, like I said in the beginning, we have to find that lovingly and willingly enduring, and we have to find that enthusiasm, which is the love within, in order to really get somewhere. So if we get to the place where we feel like let's say we get triggered by anger, or our anger gets triggered. I guess we could get triggered by anger too. Somebody could be angry and that can trigger us. So, and we get really, really, really angry. So the first place to go with that is what you said earlier, Guy. Feel what you feel with love. Not trying to make the anger go away. We want to make it more. We want to be more angry. That's why it's much better to do it in private and on the body electronics table than it is to do out in the public space. with partners or friends or family or whatever. It's much better to do that transmutation process privately so that it doesn't become conflict, right?
Mhm.
That's, I
Just
mean, that's,
remembering the one time my mum held my points, and I didn't think beforehand. All the arguments and conflict and headbutting, that we'd had over the years. you know, uh, if I'd thought about it, I probably wouldn't have asked her to hold my points. But
hey, go for it.
yeah, yeah,
That's great of her to do that.
yeah,
Did you
yeah.
hold her points?
No, she
Oh,
didn't. She
didn't
didn't want to do it
you want to do
after
that?
that.
Well, it's good of
Yeah.
her to hold your points.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
she had a really beautiful healing crisis afterwards, and she sort of broke down and went through a lot of grief about her dad, and
great.
that was kind of really beautiful. Yeah.
Those are the blessings we talked about earlier about what happens when you hold points. If you do that
Mm,
with with a loving service, we get those blessings. They may not
mm.
seem like blessings at the time, but we do get those blessings. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Um, okay, lovingly and willing and do all things. I think okay, so there's just a couple more points and then we'll complete for today. Well, you can ask any questions you want before we finish, but so the yin in body electronics, we hear about the yin and the yang. I think everybody's heard that now. And then, um, the symbol, the yin yang symbol. Well, that's not how we approach yin and yang in body electronics. So the yin in body electronics is the outer experience. I mean, that's the easiest way to put it. It's created within, and it's created not only personally, but collectively. So that's really important to know. I mean, there's influences, and it's not only physical influences, it's non-physical influences that are also creating and influencing. So we have to, it's very complex. It becomes very complex when we look at how creation actually occurs here. It's not this simplistic, karmic idea, or, you hear in the whole New Age movement, it was like, oh, we're the creators, we're, blah, blah, blah. That it's so complex that we can't even wrap our heads around it. All we know for sure is that we are part of the creation process in the physical realm. We know that for sure. And we create with thought, word, and emotion. And that thought, word, and emotion goes into the soup. Excuse me. Just gonna take a little sip here. I'm back on the chlorophyll water, guy.
Ah,
Um, and so it's, so that whole manifestation thing is mostly nonsense, because we can't really even understand it, let alone control it. And that's why people usually went into all that. They want to control how they
mm,
live. They want to manifest this or manifest that or whatever. That's all a bunch of nonsense. It's really because we have to know we do have input, and the input that's unconscious is what we're wanting to get at and remove, because it's resistance based. And then things just become clearer and clearer, and you do see your life clean up. You do see your experiences of life really become much more free and fluid and beautiful. And that does happen as resistance is released. But I don't believe it should be a goal. When it becomes a goal, then that puts a resistance there, that we have to move through that. So if we just keep steady with like the releasing of resistance and not being focused on that yin experience,
mm.
but be focused on the yang experience, which is our inner life.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to make that distinction.
Mm.
And okay, so John wrote, outer experience created by the mirror effect of collective and individual consciousness. So that's an interesting thing too, right? The mirror effect. So here we learn to be receptive, grateful to the experiences of life, and those experiences will be magnetically drawn to us. Yeah. Always grateful. So back to wrapping it up with how we began, lovingly and willingly endure all things. Yeah. The yin and the yang, the external and the internal.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. And that's all I wanted to say for today. Did you want to ask anything, Helen?
No, I feel like I need to go back and reread that.
And like I said, like you reread it over and over and over again. Like for the first few years, like once a year, I would go back and read the books, and every time it was like reading it brand new. Especially if we're practicing internally and we're changing our consciousness, which is the whole point of the exercise. It would be like reading it with new eyes, and new ears and new heart and new mind. So yeah, so it's not the type of material that can just be heard once. Like I went to every single intensive that Doug gave. I think I missed part of one. Maybe my children had something on that I had to attend or something like that, and I missed part of one from early January 2002 until he retired in 2007. And he was doing 3 intensives a year, and one was always a month long. And that was a huge commitment for me because of my children being so young. But yeah, and Doug had a very uniformed method of delivering a lecture. And he basically said the same thing every single time. And every single time I learned it deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah. So repetition is in body electronics is not only great, but recommended. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we get kind of, in daily life, repetition kind of becomes irritating, but in body electronics, it's really important. Would you like to say something, Guy?
Well, just on that, I don't know how many times I've held the same points on the feet, but just about every point holding session is different and
Yes.
unique in some way.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because hopefully it is unique because we're bringing something up new from the unconscious each time. And
Yeah.
rather than recycling and not really getting to a full transmutation. If it's new each time, you know that you're, because I've seen people recycle for years, recycle the
Yeah,
same
I've seen a
thing
bit of
over
that.
and over
Yeah.
and over and over again and never get into a full transmutation where they're moving on to something else. So if you're getting something new every time, you're going in the right direction. Yeah. Okay, well, I will I guess what I'll do is I'll put it out. I'll put it out when I'm going to do another one. And like Sundays work, do Mondays work for you, Guy? Because I know you are a day ahead.
Yeah, usually, yeah, Monday's my day off.
Oh,
So
is it?
yeah,
Okay,
you do on
perfect.
Saturday.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
Sundays work really good for me. So when the next Sunday, I'll give like at least a few days in advance notice. Are you on the Body Electronics group pages, Helen?
I think I was because I found the link.
Okay, great. So maybe add it as like you have to add yourself onto the group, and then you'll probably get a notification if you're actually in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll turn them on.
Yeah, because I don't like to do it too much on my private Facebook because I think 99.9 of the people there aren't interested in body electronics. So I might put something there once in a while, but all of it will be on those two group pages. And I'll give you at least a few days notice of when that's going to occur. And we'll kind of do the same thing that we're doing now and play it by ear.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Sundays work well for me too.
Oh, great. Oh, that's great. Okay. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for
Okay.
coming on, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
Nice to meet you, Helen.
You
Good
too.
to see
Bye.
you earlier.
See you.
All right.